Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about what's going on at the companies. With us today, happy to have him back because it's been a while. This is going to be a great one. Jay Hutton, Visibility Group, trades in Canada, VSBY, in the US, VSBGF, and for the first time ever, and that's going to be exciting for all shareholders who are watching, Diego Sanchez, the co-founder and CCO, Winkel Media Group. For those of you new to the story and need to know a little bit about why we're doing this interview, Visibility is the world leader in proactive digital display. What does that mean? They take traditional static digital displays that we've all seen and gotten bored of, that you see in stores, arenas, stadiums, and come into smart cities. They then sprinkle in some artificial intelligence, a little bit of machine learning, to create real-time advertising and security solutions, the likes of which the world literally has never seen. So this is what they're calling the intersection of marketing and security, and they're essentially reinventing real-world retail. Now, more than just lip service, because a lot of people talk the talk. Partners include Intel, InBev, AustinGIS, SensorMatic, the Jabir Group that was just announced a little while ago, and Winkel Media. That's why Diego's here. That's a joint venture of Visibility. It's Latin American partner, Retailigent Media, and Anheuser-Busch InBev. So this is the real deal because it was developed to be the first retail digital out-of-home network in Latin America. And so far, the company is delivering $5.3 million in revenue in the first 9 months of 2022. That's a 459% increase over the same period last year. But like all great technology, cutting-edge stories, it's not linear. Sometimes you run into a couple of stumbling blocks. That's what we're going to talk about. Jay, welcome back. Diego, welcome for the first time, my friends.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Hey, Jay, talking to you first because you're the head honcho here, and I want to address the elephant in the room right off the bat. There's been some disappointment in the investment community amongst your shareholders in project delays, right? And it's not because you're having problems with the technology, but even the likes of Echelon called it partnership politics. So let's address the delays, because obviously people are really excited about the rollout plans you've announced, 50,000 locations in Latin America. But let's address the delays. Why are they happening?
I don't know about the phrase partnership politics, but I was trying to unpack that. I would guess that's referring to different agendas, really. And we're doing, this is a bold vision, right? We're taking traditional trade and we're modernizing traditional trade. We're digitizing 3.5 square meter convenience stores. And that's a big promise, like that, and a bold vision. There's a lot of moving parts. There's an agenda that we have. There's an agenda that Winkel Media has, and there's a third, potentially inconsistent agenda that AB InBev has. And over the little while, as you work out like a family would work out problems and arguments and disagreements, we figure out what agenda is our collective agenda. And really, that took us, Diego will probably have his own comments on it, but it took us a while, right? So a store on the side of a dirt road in Guadalajara might be strategically important to AB InBev from a digital transformation point of view, but Diego doesn't like it as a media value. So you know, it doesn't have media value the same way that that same store, that same footprint of store in Polanco, downtown Mexico City would have. And so it's the process of understanding, being empathetic to your customers on your partner's requirements, and then selecting together a suite of stores which meets everyone's needs. So there have been, and thankfully I could say, and Diego may have a comment on this, but I can say that a lot of that's behind us. But that across 4 different countries has been part of the issue that's been keeping it from sort of achieving its initial objectives.
So is it fair to say that it's growing pains, Jay? It's not you guys aren't agreeing. It's just growing pains. You're all trying to figure out your own priorities, line them all up, and then move forward.
it's growing pains, yes, like any time you would deploy something as bold as this. But secondly, Diego is proselytizing. He's out educating a marketplace about a brand new channel. His day, I'm not going to speak for him necessarily, but his day consists of speaking to brands and agencies about how they can drive consumer engagement at the point of sale, something they've never been able to do before, at least not with the kind of measurement and accuracy that computer vision gives us. I don't want to read the last chapter before the first chapter, but the point is he's preaching the gospel, and some of that requires multiple visits to make that happen. But we're through that now, I think, and he's done a really masterful job of taking us from those early, chipping away stages to now recurring buys, customers coming back, and now the market model is beginning to fortify, and we're now looking at a lot less risk in our model than we had just in early 22.
All right, let's defer to Diego. Diego, welcome to Agoracom. Really glad to have you here. And I'm sure the shareholders are glad to see you here because they want to get your perspective. And I would like to hear your, nothing but your professional perspective on what you think is going on with the project delays. Does Jay have it right? Do you see it somehow different? What are your comments on how this is moving forward?
Sure. Thank you for having me, George. Yeah, in terms of project delays, as Jay mentioned, besides partner agendas and all that, what's been more challenging has been specifically in terms of operations, right? Being in this particular channel in Latin America, even though it's the most relevant channel for media and for sales for many of the global CPGs, it's still a channel in the traditional trade. We're talking about mom and pops, corner shops, brick and mortars, different names that we give to it. But in the end, it's this channel that it's POC owners that are individuals that own their store, that we're not talking about a convenience store chain. We're not talking about supermarkets. So we're talking about, George's corner shop or
Right.
Jay's corner shop in different cities in Latin America. So the first challenge here has been digitizing this channel and installing a screen in these stores where the screen is showing advertising as opposed to showing the soccer match or the soap opera or even the daily news. It's not easy to convince them, right? So we've been through these learnings and challenges for the past year and a half, 2 years. So being able to do this, even though it has been challenging, we've reached a point where we have a really stable operational network with all these POC owners, where we've been able to incentivize them with different things, such as giving them free Wi-Fi and working along with our partner AB InBev with different incentives for them or to educate them to be able to install the screens, right? So it's not only a screen, but you're installing a screen with a camera inside their store that they're used to, working with, their customers, paying cash, no screens, obviously no cameras. So, not feeling, that somebody's watching them, and trying to educate them that the screen, is to sell advertising or to have advertising on the screen. And this advertising, it's not only going to benefit the customers per se, it's going to benefit them because there's going to be an increase in sales in their stores, and that means direct revenue to them, right? So I would say that's the main challenge that we faced in terms of project delays. So we had a plan, X number of stores by this month, X number of stores by the end of this year, and it's taking a little longer. But, and the other thing here is being in these stores, and specifically Mexico, because we're in 4 countries, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, specifically Mexico, that we're nationwide, trying to do these store visits across the whole country. In Peru, for example, it's easier because in Lima, we have an operations team that goes out there and visits the stores and makes sure that, the store's open, the screen's on, and everything's working. because we haven't had any fails in terms of the technology. The technology
Nice.
works perfect, and that has been, and it is our added value, and our competitive advantage versus other mediums in Latin America or even in the world, right? But back to my point, in Lima, it's easier because we're only in Lima. So it's one city, it's having 5 people going around all these stores. Mexico, we're in 28 states. So, not to compare one country to another, but it's like if you had these kind of stores in the States and you have to send people to go visit stores anywhere, from Seattle to Texas to Florida and back to California, and going and visiting these stores and making sure that it's working. So we have the technology to monitor our stores in a way where we can know if the screen's on, if it's showing the actual advertising loop and all that. But there's always loopholes that we need to go to the actual store, right? So
it sounds like, Diego, between what Jay had to say and what you're saying, there's some growing pains that come at the corporate level. And like I said, it's a family, you're trying to figure out each other's priorities so you can help each other, but you have your priorities. And on your end, really on the street, there's also a learning curve that that the customers had to go through. And it sounds like that learning curve just took longer than you guys probably all expected. But they both seem to be behind you now. Jay, would that be an accurate assessment where the growing pains between the partners, lining up priorities, aligning, are behind you, and the learning curves at the street level are getting behind you as well?
Really glad Diego brought up the operations issue, because I should have thought of that, but that's important. Think about this. Mexico, as expansive as Mexico is, like geographically speaking, you're spread around to, like Diego said, 28 states, and you don't have any clusters of media value, if you could put it that way, clusters of stores, right? So any store that you have to visit is a plane ride or at least a car drive away. And in in Ecuador, in Peru, and Colombia, of course, those same issues exist, but less so. We've got the benefit of clusters.
Yeah.
And that has really impacted us. And I think had we the opportunity to do it again, Diego and I would be in the meeting rooms. We both were banging our fist on the table saying, no, we need to start with Mexico and Guadalajara and Monterrey. And, we want to start with the clusters. I remember us talking that way. Maybe, Diego, we should have been more forceful, but that's really a big takeaway, a big learning.
All right. And guys, I got to tell you, as completely third-party objective opinion, I've seen that happen before. When you're changing the world, when you're doing something this paradigm shifting, it's not a straight line. I don't care what you tell me. It just doesn't happen in any. I don't care if you're Google back then with search. I don't care if you're Apple with mobile. It's just not a straight line. So if that's the situation, it sounds like you guys are both confident that you're on mission. You guys are still, know where you're going. Diego, let me ask you a question. What's the current sales situation of Winkel Media? Where is it heading this year? I'm not asking you to give us projections, but where's it heading this year? And how's it look in the next 3 years in terms of how you're going to be able to ramp this up, your confidence that's going to be able to ramp up?
Sure. And just to finish that last point that we were talking about, and that you mentioned Google and everything you just said, that's why nobody has been able to do this. And that's why we're the first company to do this and to become the largest retail media network in this channel, right? Because we've seen Walmart through Walmart Connect to have screens and sell advertising in their stores. And even now convenience stores or large convenience store chains are doing this, but they have a lot more control. And back to my point where it's individual POC owners as opposed to having a chain and having a lot more control, even with store hours, right? You have a 7-Eleven and 7-Eleven has to open from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. or whatever. These stores, they don't have an actual store hours. They don't have to report to anyone. So that's why it's been so challenging. A lot of large companies have tried to do this in the past in Mexico and Latin America in general, even in Brazil, and nobody has been able to do it. And today we are at a point, like you mentioned, George, where we went through this learning curve, And I can tell you, we are at really close to 2,000 stores, totally stable operationally. And by that, I mean sellable stores, right? Because you can install, back to my point earlier, you can install 5,000 stores if you want, but if you don't have those stable stores where you can prove that the advertising is showing, that the screen is on, and then you can report to your customers that their ad was shown in these stores, it's basically worthless, right? So today we have close to 2,000 sellable stores, right? So back to your question, Winkel's sales situation, and it has to do with what I just mentioned, because with this store stability in a way, it also comes with sales, right? So like I said, it's close to 2,000 sellable stores. After 2 years of building this network, having all these learnings and challenges that I mentioned, we reach this point where I can go out there as the chief commercial officer with the different teams in the different countries and be able to sell these stores and report these stores in these 4 countries, right? So today on the sales side, we're working with 7 of the top global CPGs. And by these, I mean the Coca-Colas, the PepsiCos, the Nestle, Unilever's, P&G, Bimbo, which is I would say it's a Mexican company, but it's global and it's huge. So we're working with 7 of these top CPGs, and we're getting, like Jay mentioned in the past, we're getting pre-buys for the network. We're getting rebuys, which is really important for us because in all mediums in advertising, if you just sell to one customer in March and then another customer in April and so on and so forth, it's totally different than if you actually have yearly always on contracts where a Bimbo, a P&G, or a Coca-Cola, tells you, I want to be in your network in the entire year, right? And if you have today 500 stores in Mexico, let me know when you have 800 or 1,200, because I want to be in all of them. Because besides the positive advertising output that they've seen in their campaigns and being able to measure the specific performance of these campaigns through VSBLTY's computer vision technology, that I'll expand on that in a little bit, these companies have seen sales lift in all these campaigns. So we've seen that coming from them, and they do this analysis through sell in, sell out, and all that, and they've told us, right, after we started advertising in Winkel, and it can be anywhere from a product communication, a product launch, all the way to promotions, they've seen between 25% and 30% lift in these stores.
That's massive, Diego. That's you don't see 25-30% lift in traditional Canadian supermarkets. Am I right? That's a massive lift.
Right, and considering this being the most relevant channel for a lot of these companies, right? In Latin America, 50 to 70% of total sales for some of these companies are in this channel, right? So, and that's one of the reasons why we took the challenge, and even though we knew it was going to be hard and everything we talked about, with the project delays and all these challenges with the channel per se, that's why one of the reasons why we started Winkel, right? Because of the relevance of this traditional trade channel for some of these or most of these CPG brands, right?
So Jay, it sounds like it's taken a while to get here, but now that you've got this 2,000 stores, which effectively is a massive sample set for brands and agencies around the world, it sounds like the results are coming in, and the results are better than you guys expected. And in other words, you may not be happy with the total amount of installs, but we've addressed that. But you got to be really happy with the performance of the installs, which means everybody, all the constituents, everybody in this, from the store owner right to the brands agencies, it looks like everyone's really enthusiastic about this.
Well, George, I'm pretty happy with what we've done so far. I think it's interesting that even my own team initially focused on the store installation as a key metric. And while that's not a meaningless metric, it's not the metric, right? The appropriate metric is what amount of inventory are you selling on each store? And what's that yielding on a month-to-month basis? Is that flat? Is that going up? Are there rebuys coming in? The things we've mentioned before. So even though I don't think we should depart the metric which references store installations because it's relevant. The more meaningful relevant is what are you actually doing in those stores, right?
Yeah.
Are we actually selling the inventory of the stores?
Diego, how just to further that, because we kind of went off on a tangent, how are sales going, generally speaking, this year, and how do you see them going forward in terms of acceleration now that you've gotten over that learning curve?
Right, and I forgot to finish my answer to that question, but yes, as I said, like this year, with everything I mentioned previously, and all this momentum that we have, not only with the CPGs that I said the 7 out of 10, but we also have other customers in other industries. But I can tell you, things are looking great this year. We've doubled our revenues this quarter versus the entire 2022.
Wow.
So I think that's a great metric, and we're looking obviously to have an amazing 2023. And back to store installations, our target or goal is to reach close to the 5,000 stores, right? And as Jay mentioned, one of our main KPIs in Winkel sales team is not only having more stores and reaching a certain number of stores, but reaching a number of sellable stores, as I said, based on the operations side and all that, but also in terms of inventory, right? So if we have 2,000 stores, having a certain percentage of the inventory of slots sold in these stores, as opposed to having more stores with less inventory, right? So that is something that we've able to manage.
You're optimizing the current inventory.
Right. So 2023 is looking great, and obviously the future, right? And with all these learnings and being able to work with some of these customers that it took us a while, to sell even though it's such a relevant channel and all that, it's something new to them. But if you add to that, not only it's a powerful enough tool as a medium if you have a screen in these stores, because it's never been there before. So that per se, for the brands and the agencies, it's powerful enough because you're talking about, a small store, as we've mentioned before, because of the format of the store, the size of the store, the people going into the store, the customer journey, and specifically having the screens behind checkout. And not more than 90% of people going into these stores are making a purchase, right? So if they're making a purchase, they're going to checkout. If they go to checkout, they're exposed to our screens. And that per se is powerful enough as a medium. If you add to that VSBLTY's computer vision technology, in order to give brands all these shopper insights in such a relevant channel that they didn't have before, the combination of those two is what has made us today, where we are, and the potential that it has for this year and for the future.
And is it safe to say, Diego, that the reason you've got 7 top 10 CPGs at the table is they love the result, they see what it is, and they want more? Are they like Oliver, in the face? And do they want more from you? Are they asking for more stores because they're happy with the results?
Totally, yes. As I mentioned before, they're telling me, a couple of these clients are saying, we need more stores. We're in it with you guys in 300, 500 today. When you have more stores, we're going to go in it because, as I mentioned, it's not only the advertising perspective, but it's being in the purchasing moment for these brands with a sales lift that's so important to them in this particular channel, right? So, just as an example, like Bimbo that I mentioned, we started that was our first customer maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. And they started with, a POC in 50 stores, then they went to 100, then they went to 250. And today we have them in 500 stores for the entire 2023, right? And we have a lot of those examples, but I think that shows obviously the momentum with these.
And that's what really counts. Look, in my book, again, guys, this isn't this isn't any advice to anybody at home. This isn't analysis, but I've been around for 25 years. I'm a lawyer by training. I've viewed business plans. That's the key, that you have key customers, major brand customers like that, who are escalating their usage of your product, which in this place, a digital product, that's everything, because it means it works. And that's the part that's most important. Does it work? Now you can focus on scaling, but you've answered the big question. I think you have, Jay. It sounds like you've answered the big question. It works. Now it's just a matter of scale. Jay, we could talk for a ton more, but we're at 25 minutes right now. And I'm glad we had this. This is really important to have this conversation here about why the delays, where they're coming from, what does it mean, where are you guys going, everything we talked about. What I would like to do, and you and I have talked about this, is let's schedule a Q&A for sometime next 10 days or so, and you and I come back on where we let the shareholders have a chance to ask questions. They've heard what Diego's had to say. They've heard what you've had to say. Plus, hey, you've had some great news out there. The City Beacon news, you won the Intel Award again for the second year in a row. So there's a lot of good things happening, but I think we want to give shareholders a chance to, dive in here and be part of the conversation. Does that work for you?
Happy to do it. Yes.
All right, Diego, man, this was great having you on, and I can't wait to have you back. I think when we have these big picture discussions, you should be back all the time, because you can really tell us what's going on at that granular level. And I'm really happy about what I heard, and it was a really pleasure having you on today, Diego.
I'd be happy to, and thank you, George, for having me. It was great to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure, my friend. And I'm sure the shareholders, the most important thing is shareholders, investors are going to say they got a lot of that too. Thanks, Jay. Can't wait to see you until next time, my friend.
Thank you.
For everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening to my podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To both Jay Hutton, he's the CEO of VSBLTY Group, VSBY, VSBGF is where they trade, and Diego Sanchez, co-founder and CCO of Winkel Media Group. For those new to the story and you want to get more information, start the company's profile page on Agoracom, because this is new tech. All of it is new, never been seen before. So we've got it there in layman's terms for you to understand. And then once you've got that information, head over to the company's website, do your deep dive due diligence. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Look for the Q&A, guys. We're going to be announcing that over the next couple of days, and we want you all to participate. Until then, have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and then leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel so you don't ever miss another great Agoracom small cap video.